So you just purchased your first budget video camera with a kit lens on Amazon, some basic lighting equipment, and a cheap tripod eager to make your first film. For inspiration, you put on your favorite movies, only to slowly get discouraged as you think to yourself, I don't have the equipment necessary to get these awesome Hollywood shots that incorporate interesting movement, shots where you need a drone, dolly, crane, or at the very least a slider. How could I ever make an engaging cinema-level film only with a camera and tripod? I found myself asking the same questions until I watched the movie Prisoners, which, I kid you not, could have been 90% shot on a tripod. And holy cow, is it one of the best films I've seen in a long time. I'm not going to give too much of the plot away because if you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil it for you. And if you have seen it, I'm sure you'll appreciate the analysis. For context, Prisoners is a story where two young girls go missing with heavy suspicions that they had been abducted. Detective Loki, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is brought in to take on the case of finding these missing children. And then there's Hugh Jackman, who plays Keller Dover, the distraught father of one of these missing girls who decides he needs to take matters into his own hands in order to find his daughter. Prisoners was directed by the famous Denis Villeneuve, so it's no wonder why this movie turned out to be an absolute banger. Even if you solve the mystery before the end, it's one of those movies that is enjoyable to watch solely because the performances alone. And if you're a filmmaker, you might think to yourself, I could shoot a movie like this. So in this video, I want to take a look at how effective the seemingly simple camera techniques used in this movie are, specifically the sequences that show how much tension and suspense can be created with a camera locked to a tripod. This is so we can understand how it's possible to shoot an engaging film even with minimal equipment. But first, let me go over the product placement for today's sponsor. I'm just kidding, nobody sent me any product deal. But if they did, I would hope it would be to showcase one of Sony's Cinemaline cameras like the FX30, because I'm poor and it's out of my price range. The scene that I'm going to cover happens early on when Detective Loki is following up on past offenders to see if he can find any leads on the missing children. This offender happens to be a priest. There are more tense scenes, but the reason why I chose this one is because it's still a good example of creating suspense, and I feel like beginners could replicate some of the methods used here in their own films at a home location. First, let's take a look at the scene's establishing shot as Loki pulls up to the church. Notice how the director framed the composition in a way where leading lines and the car's movement guide the viewer's eye, making this fairly still shot more interesting. Using framing techniques helps shots feel more intentional, even if they seem simple. And you'll notice different composition techniques as you observe the film. When the priest doesn't answer the door, Loki peers through a nearby window and sees the priest motionless on the floor, giving us our first bit of suspense. Notice how the elements in the shot frame what's important while creating depth in order to build a stronger composition. In this shot alone, just look how many layers are being used to create visual interest. The set design feels so natural and real that the audience probably wouldn't even guess that these layers were staged like this on purpose. Loki breaks into the chapel house to check on the priest, only to find out that he's not hurt, but passed out drunk, and the scene's suspense level drops. Inside the house, little details depict a narrative without the need of explanation, and atmospheric elements like the TV playing also help the scene to not feel so flat by adding some background sound. It's these kinds of subtle details that more amateurish films are missing. Things tend to feel off when they're not there. As Loki takes a look around, we're shown odd rust stains indicating that the refrigerator had been moved, and the scene again rebuilds suspense as we piece together suspicions. What's done well is that the sequence is directed as if we're investigating with Loki and seeing how he sees. First, taking in the big picture, then noticing the clues. Tension continues to grow when moving the fridge reveals that it was blocking a hidden door. When Loki opens the door, he's met with foreboding darkness. The stairs that would have led down to the basement have been removed, which only makes the situation that much more strange, being a good way to trap someone inside. Just look how this frame here alone purposefully creates feelings of uneasiness by isolating the character in the doorway, allowing the dark negative space to dominate the shot. Unable to see what's below, Loki has no choice but to descend into the darkness, and tension and suspense build even higher as we brace for what comes next. I'm not going to reveal what happens so I don't give away any spoilers, but the point of this breakdown was to show how tension and suspense can be created even if you're only able to use a tripod. As a no-budget filmmaker, I know what it's like to try to craft a cinematic experience with very little resources. Many times you won't even be able to get friends or family to participate as actors in your film, meaning you'll need to learn how to be in front of as well as behind the camera. Understanding how to craft a competent narrative where the camera doesn't need to move is doable now with the cheapest of gear, and will ultimately make you a better filmmaker as you develop a clear understanding of framing composition and pacing. And that's why I encourage you to watch Prisoners, so you can see how a skilled director was able to shoot an engaging feature film using minimal camera movement. I used to inadvertently fall victim to the false doctrine of waiting for permission in order to exercise my creativity, always waiting for the right time or to have enough gear or have a certain amount of success and confidence. But that manner of thinking will only hold you back and smother your creativity. Opportunities are only found on the foundations you build from your experience. I understand that there's a lot more to creating a production like Prisoners that was not discussed in this video, which could only be achieved on a Hollywood budget. But I think you'll be amazed of how far you can get with a next to no budget and a little creativity. So use what you have now and get started. If you're looking for inspiration with creating a low-budget film, check out my detective short, which I was able to create using budget equipment and a cheap camera. With enough momentum, I'm hoping to one day get the ability to turn it into a feature film. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and hopefully your engagement will help this channel to one day become a thing. And if you want to aid me in my film journey, either by acting in one of my projects or sharing your movie makeup talent or by donating camera gear you no longer use or want, leave a comment below.